So when we hear the word zoo, we usually remember animals, and we know that the zoo is a place where we can see animals from the different parts of the world. But did you know that back then humans can also be exhibited in zoos?
Welcome to another episode of Maestro Speaks podcast.
The equivalent of love is forgiveness.
Mhm.
You cannot love without forgiveness.
Lumabalin ka iti young generation anda kumamot nga mapasaran.
Naibag nga morning mo ako Il Maestro.
Tanya deh kung nanay deh mesa.
I-appeal mo.
Bueno.
Apil ko man kada gitu ko. Pipi ako man pilit gan si. Tutok mo.
Di pa nag-approach mo rin?
Amo pa.
Approach.
Ita. Nang nangeg ko nga ibagbagan pa lang ni Lola kiti.
You better know the substance of the law.
Bayaw mo nang ibagas ni Manong.
And who cares if people have dark skin, right?
Kaanakan iti with expiration.
You find any inspiration in this we have done, and you have done your noble part.
El Maestro Speaks podcast.
Before we continue, today is May 25, 2024. I would just like to give a shout out to all the Lions Club of Lions Nation MMA. I just finished watching the Zeus Combat League. It's a promotion with the aim of developing our amateur fighters here in the Philippines. And three of the young fighters from Lions Nation MMA um, had their fight tonight. And congratulations to what's the name of the guy? I'm sorry, John Servo. Mr. Servo won his fight for this promotions event, and um, still congratulations to Denver Sumaban and Aaron Pusawan of Lions Nation MMA. They did not get the W, but for sure they'll come back stronger next time. So the Lions Nation MMA is under the it was founded by um, the former Team Lakay members, the Landslide Fulayan or Edward Fulayan, the Philippine MMA icon, and Honorio de Rock Banario, Kevin Belingon, Joshua Pasha, the strawweight champion of one championship, Kevin Belingon, and Eric Kelly. So we will see more of these fighters, in the Igorot Nation, as I say, here in Kaigurutan, MMA sport is big. I just saw a post a while ago of the Team Lakay gym. They showed a picture of the gym's entrance. And there's a lot of flip-flops and shoes there. That means that there are a lot of children wanting to follow the footsteps of this great champion of MMA. So, having a sip of coffee now, we were talking about this uh, zoo wherein the exhibits are human. And uh, looking back, what happened? How did this start? Okay, so according to some of the readings I did, this started because of the what is that? The theory that was proposed by Darwin. What's the name? Charles Darwin. You know this guy. That the theory was about the evolution wherein humans evolved from a lower kind of creature, and then as time goes by, developing the skills in order to survive, because it's the survival of the fittest, right? Those that cannot evolve will not survive. And in order for you to survive, you gotta evolve. And accordingly to the based on the theory, humans came from a lower kind of creature, and because of their will to survive, that's why they evolved into us today. Now, that theory then, um, posed the question of, can we see? Okay, now I'm talking here of um, the question that they'd be asking during the earlier days back when the books of knowledge or they know so little about the world. Okay, so back then, so when this theory came out, they were trying to look. They have this question of, so can we find around the world a living creature that is not evolved or is late in the stairs of evolution? So that was the question. Okay. So who were those people that were considered as fully evolved? Okay. Well, those who are in the Western countries, those who are in the powerful countries who are trying to colonize other countries, because that was the year also of industrialization, wherein a lot of machines are being invented by inventors. Hmm. Coffee's good. And a lot of development is happening fast. There are cities, bustling cities, wherein development is um, being invented. I mean, new ways of living are being invented, new ways, new machines to help in creating something new in the eyes of human are being invented. So, um, new kind of education, new philosophies, new discoveries in science are coming out. And so that's the question they were asking, are there creatures around the world who are late in the stage of evolution? That's it. And of course, if that creatures late in the stage of evolution, they're considered less human. Thus, they won't be treated equal. Okay, so that's where that started. I saw that in an essay. I don't know where I got it, but I forgot. I'm sorry, I cannot cite the place where I got it. So then came the exploration, right? Magellan came to, I mean, Magellan was, okay, exploring the high seas or the seven seas, looking for the best route to India. And then, of course, Columbus, Christopher Columbus, with the same objective. And other people from Great Britain are also doing that. Okay. After that, they found places where they saw this unique culture. But because it's not the same as their culture, they just say it is barbaric, right? Um, that's how they see it. Here comes the Americans also starting to grow up as a nation of power. Now, during those time, the measure or the standard to be called a powerful nation is when you can colonize a lot of countries. So there was this race after the power of Spain is going down. Spain and Portugal is going down. Now here comes the rise of Britain and America. Now, America also came to be with his ambition of trying to be known as a great nation. He started to do what the old power nation is doing, colonizing. So, well, they have um, this plan to colonize. They already colonized Guam and Philippines like that, right? And of course, with those came the discovery of people in those countries. Again, using their standard of, again, it came from that uh, theory of evolution. Using that standard, they consider themselves as the most evolved creature, or they're the most developed creature, and considered other culture as inferior. Okay? Now, uh, because of this belief that some creature or human are considered as subhuman, that's why they have created this exhibit of um, showing humans of other country as a, as an entertainment. Okay, so that's where our topic today comes in: the human zoo. So how did it start? All right. So accordingly, so human zoos, or ethnological expositions, were public display of people, usually so-called the natural or the primitive state. So those being displayed in those zoo are called in their primitive state, right? They were prominent during the 19th century and the 20th centuries. Okay? Now, this display sometimes emphasized the supposed inferiority of the exhibited culture and implied the superiority of the Western society. That's what I'm saying a while ago. And that came from the belief of the theory of evolution. Now, this started the first that is being exhibited in this human zoo. So just imagine, all right, that these people here, they are in one compound, and then here in this part of the compound, you can see the lion, and this area here, you can see the giraffe, the crocodile, all the animals that came from different part of the world. And in this part here, you can see this human. He is, say, some like this in color. Say he is black. He doesn't wear any clothes. He doesn't wear suit like we do, and he doesn't use steel. He doesn't use, or they don't use machines like we do. They don't know how to speak English like we do, something like that. So, and then they show it to the world, then give those spectator the experience of going to the place of those so-called primitive human, right? So before that started, the expositions or the exhibits were those that have physical disabilities. So you can like compare this to the circus, like the ones that we see in American movies if they're doing period movies, or yeah, they're doing history movies. That there's this circus, and then they show humans with um big hands, something like that. Short humans, dwarves, as we call it, but not, we don't call them dwarves now. Sorry for that, for those who are always or trying to tend to be politically correct now. Um, they're just displaying those like the Siamese twins like that. All right. Now after that, then here comes the um expositions of these people from tribes, okay, that they get from as if my memory serves me right, the earliest that is known accordingly is the um, Moctezuma in Mexico. Those are like they were displayed, they were exhibited, and there were also exhibits of the albinos and the hunchbacks. Still, those ones, okay, are human and they have serious disabilities, right? And they're being exhibited as something, they're being viewed as something subhuman. Right? And um, I'm just, I cannot imagine, just imagine you yourself as someone who has a disability and then someone saw you and then they just bring you to a place to be displayed, to be viewed by human every day, right? And that was the early form of human soup. Now here comes um the other form, wherein you can see humans from another country doing what they do in their original place, right? And there, say for example, we have here another an article about uh, a a tribe in Africa where they were taken and then they act like they were in Africa even though they're not in Africa. They built their home as if they were in Africa, and people are paying to watch these people go about their daily lives, right? Okay. Now the the human zoos was also witnessed by our national hero here in the Philippines, Dr. Jose Rizal. There was an exposition in Madrid where he saw egrets being exhibited there, and he lamented this, or he was, you know, he did not like what's happening to, as he said, his egret brothers. Now, one guy who became very popular. I don't know if people here in the Philippines know him, but this guy, his name is Carl Hagenbeck. Let me just check my list if I'm saying it right. Yeah, Carl Hagenbeck, a German animal trader, right? And so he's an animal trainer at the same time, of course, an explorer, and he was a what do you call this one? He was largely known as the one who built the 19 of St. Louis Fair, wherein the egrets were exhibited. All right. So let me just read some of his great work here. So Carl Hagenbeck was an animal trader, was one of the early proponent of this trend. When in 1874, at the suggestion of Heinrich Letterman, he decided to exhibit the Sami people with the Laplander exhibition. With what differentiated Hagenbeck's exhibit from others was the fact that he showed these people with animals and plants to recreate their natural environment. He sold people the feeling of traveling to these areas by witnessing his exhibits. These exhibits traveled to these areas, these exhibits were a massive success and only became larger, more and more elaborate. From this point forward, human exhibitions would lean towards stereotyping and projecting Western superiority, later feeding into the imperialist narrative that these people's culture merited subjugation. It also promoted scientific racism, where they were classified as more or less civilized on scale from great apes to Western Europeans. All right. Hagerbeck would go on to launch the Nubian exhibit in 1876 and an Inuit exhibit in 1880. These were also massively successful. Aside from that, was also aside from Hagenbeck, the chart in the acclamation was also a hotspot of ethnological exhibits. All right, so those are okay, the exhibits. In 1886, the Spanish displayed natives from the Philippines in an exhibition as people whom they civilized. All right, so that's an exhibition also done by the Spanish. Again, still human zoo. Okay, it's a zoo where they exhibit, instead of animals, exhibiting people. As on the account of the Spanish, they exhibited people from the Philippines. I think one group of people are the Igorots, and another ones are from the southern part of the Philippines. And they exhibited them to show that they have civilized these people. As pointed out in this article, because of this zoo or because of these exhibits, a lot of people believed that these people are like a little bit above apes because of their culture. And wow. And that the western part of the world are the most developed, most civilized part of the world, and that as to the 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 thinking of this people, they think that these countries where these less or primitive people came from must be subjugated or must be colonized so that they can civilize them. It's like it's their mission to civilize them accordingly. Yeah, that's where I don't know if that's where the white supremacy idea came from. Yeah, because most of these exhibited people, okay, I don't know if majority, but most of them are Africans, right? They came from Africa. I think that's where um, the idea of slavery also came, because some traders would like get African tribes and then bring it to America, and then one, I cannot remember the name, one African king, I think, thought of getting other tribes from their neighboring enemies and then bringing them, selling them to white Americans or white people. Okay, so again, human zoo. So they exhibited people, and then in 1904, so Philippines was exhibited here. Okay, I mean, Igorots from the Philippines, not to just in case somebody is listening here and they will say, hindi kami, or it's not us, it's the Igorots who were exhibited. Okay. So the Igorots from the Philippines were exhibited in a human zoo. All right. Now, this style, like I read a while ago, is that they will live like they do back in their country. And that's when the Igorots from Suyok Mankayan um, were taken and was brought to St. Louis. And that's an Igorot from Ankaya named Mora also was brought there, and unfortunately, she died. And when she died, accordingly, the Smithsonian Institute took her brain out with the purpose of studying it. You see, just just how naive people back then are, because they think that this human are lesser of a human. They're just subhuman. That's why they have this interest to study the brain of these subhumans, to see what is so different with them. Okay. And there was this anthropologist who is campaigning now, campaigning that the brain of, because that's part of his remains, should the brain of Mora should be returned to Suyok Mankayan. I don't know what it has happened already with that campaign. I don't know the latest development of it, but I hope that will be done. Speaking of the Igorots on this human zoo became very popular, and then they were tagged as um, Filipino tribesmen, and that's in my past episode. That's the complaint of Carlos P. Romulo, because it would look like the Igorot is representing the Philippines as a whole. That when in fact there are also civilized people in the Philippines. That's the thinking. I don't know what he's thinking when he wrote that book, but I think that's his view during that time. All right. So aside from Igorots, there are also tribes from the southern part of the Philippines who were exhibited. I don't know if they have the. I'm sorry, I cannot remember the names, but there are tribes from the south who were also exhibited in those human zoos. Okay. Technology studies in Germany took a new approach in 1870 as human displays were incorporated into zoos. These exhibits were lauded as educational to the general population by the scientific community. Very quickly, the exhibits were used as a way to show that Europeans had evolved into superior cosmopolitan life, like what I'm saying a while ago. In the 19th century, German ethnographic museums were seen as empirical study of human culture. They contained artifacts from culture around the world, organized by content, allowing visitors to see the similarities and differences between the group and form their own ideas. I think this is where that's periodic complex of those who believe in the white supremacy has originated, right? Okay. And it is, you cannot, I don't know, I cannot blame them in the sense that, oh, well, we are in this generation where information and uh, education is so easy. It's just at the tip of our hand. But back then, um, people from this part of the mountain might not even know the ways and culture of people from the lowlands, right? Not if you are not going to travel. So much more with those people from the other side of the world. They wouldn't know what's happening here in this part of the world, right? So the interest, the curiosity of this human can also be one of the reason why human zoo was created. As you can see here, they called it as educational, right? Well, it can be an educational if uh, it was it is viewed supposed to be as, or those humans were viewed as their equal, right? And the cultures were respected. In the case of this, it was not. But then still they learned something, and at the same time it it validated their prejudice against this um what they call primitive people. So that's how bad this human zoo is. And uh, it's an egret who is reading this one. I just can't imagine. That's why I cannot, organize my thoughts right now. Just ever since I started this, ever since I started this one, recording this one, I cannot shake this. And in my imagination, I have very colorful imagination. I cannot imagine my fellow tribesmen just wearing G-string, then doing things that they normally do, and then people are just looking at them. I am wondering what is in their mind. Like, um, what what is in their mind? Wow, just maybe there are some of those egrets who just wants to go home, but they don't know how. They know that they crossed the big body of water and they don't know how to go back home. And you know, it's it's a painful thing to imagine. I keep on imagining them trying to talk to these people and they cannot understand their language. Like when one of them is dying and they're trying to, you know, ask help and they are being ignored because, as I said a while ago, they're being viewed as subhuman. It's it's a very painful thing to see, you know. The group of the egrets became very popular again, like what I've been seeing here, because they were labeled as the dog eating tribe, right? And the headhunters. Now, just a clarification, not all tribes of egrets are headhunters. Um, uh, there are, because we have a lot of tribes here, there are these tribes that are warlike. They, they, I don't know, it's part of the culture to go go to war with other tribes. Okay, those are the headhunters, and I think they originated from a warring tribe, warring people that came from another country, and a part of the Sumatra or Indonesia. I don't know. Okay, forgot my history. Now we also have this tribe who are just farmers, and they are peace-loving people. They don't practice headhunting, all right? So, but then when they say Igorot, they were automatically, because of this human zoo exposition, they were automatically labeled as headhunter and dog eaters. Anyway, so they were known for that, and they lived like they were in the Philippines, doing things, butchering animals there, and trying to catch dogs. I already have this stories. I think I have told it a million times already of that dog that was lost, and then when they found it, it was already cooked inside the pot of the birds. Anyway, it's a very pitiful situation. But then, uh, the Igorots, despite being called as this primitive human made it a way for them to rise up. So there are some Igorots who were brought to the United States as a part of this exhibit who, studied the ways of the white men and learned the ways of that civilized nation, learned their language, they learned how to read and write, and they came back and they educated their fellow Igorots. And that lifted, that cured or let's say, that helped the Igorots a lot. And one of that is a guy named Hilary Clapp. Okay. So they use this hardship because like what I said a while ago, it's very hard to be exhibited as a subhuman in another country where it's very cold and you're just wearing nothing, showing your culture to other people. But the Igorots adapt, and like I said, this guy, he was named Hilary Clapp. Okay, learned the language of the white men, studied their ways, and came back and made something for his people. So that's how the Egrets came out of that sad, sad part of their history being exhibited as a subhuman. It's it's an unfortunate story that happened not just to the Egrets, but to a lot of the members of the Black community. So, and other nations, because as I read here, if I'm not mistaken, even Japanese were exhibited. Even some of their tribes, I guess, were exhibited. So it's a sad and dark part of human history. Now, if you're going to ask me, so should the white men or these rich countries pay for what they did and give reparations to the Igorots? Okay, my answer for that is no. Because okay, the leaders or the America now in this current state was not the one who did that action or who did the exhibit. And I am not the Igorot who was exhibited. Okay, those guys or those people were long, long gone. So it's it's just a study. I would like to say that it's very nice to review or to see history, but to like be very vindictive and like punish those who did those wrong things back then is somewhat um what's the term I would say it here? Somewhat for the lack of a better word, it's bullshit, right? You don't do that. Like if your parent murdered someone, it's the child will not bear the punishment. It should be the one who did the action. Now those who did the actions were long gone. Okay. Same is true with the act of that slavery, that people are asking reparations to be given to black community. It's the same. If you do that, you'll open a lot of hurt from other people. Like it's not just the black, other people we're slaves too. Then other countries have been trading other people to become a slave also. So are we open? Are we gonna open all of that issue? So my point here is, let's just view or remember those stories or that history, and let's work hard so that it will not be repeated, right? We should look at history, learn from it, and see to it that the mistakes of the past will not be repeated. That's my stand on that. So, mm, please, if somebody's listening here and you're that, what do you call that one? A woke person, then you'll be asking the government from Britain and America to give reparations to those who were exhibited in the human zoo. Please stop. That's not my point in bringing this out. My point in bringing this out is just to trace, okay, the sources of the ideology that we have today, and to trace the stories of ignorance, and to show that despite being labeled as the subhuman species, the ignorance did something for themselves so that they can come out of it. So that's what I want to share in this episode of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, I would like to give a shout out to people in Canada, in Korea, South Korea, and in Hong Kong. There are some people listening there. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'm working hard to work on this audio because uh, as I look back on the different episodes of my podcast, I can hear some hissing sound that's kind of painful to the ear if you're listening using a headset. So I'm very sorry for that. We're working hard to create a better audio for our podcast. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. And that's why I'm trying very hard to speak in English, because I know that you guys are there and you keep on listening to my solo podcast. And for the other Filipinos who are listening also to my conversations in our native language. And thank you so much, people here in Baguio, in the entire Cordillera. I hope the stories that we have in the conversations can help or can inspire you to do something for yourselves also. Thank you so much for listening, and see you in the next one.